Okay, around 1818, but I'm 1819. I'm just going to say 1819, just for clarity. Doesn't really matter. All hell breaks loose over the question of slavery in the United States due to the Louisiana Purchase. Before I talk about that, I want to talk about Louisiana. And I don't mean to get too much in the details here or the weeds, I guess, but you might be wondering what's the story with Louisiana. Well, Louisiana comes into the Union as a slave state in 1812. And there was no fight about it. There was no controversy about it. Slavery had long been established in Louisiana under French and Spanish rule. Very, very complicated and interesting history of slavery. It's unique to Louisiana. So Louisiana comes into the Union in 1812 without much controversy. But in 1820, Missouri petitions, the Missouri Territory had petitioned the U.S. Congress to allow Missouri to shift its status from a territory to a state. It had reached the 50,000 population threshold that was required. And the significance here is that the fundamental takeaway point that it's U.S. expansion that causes the Civil War. Because the fights about slavery are really about the fights about the expansion of slavery and who would have more power in Washington. Slaveholding states are states where slavery didn't exist. Okay. Oh, let's see. I'm losing my I hope my Zoom's being funky. Okay, so now I'm going to shift maps to the Missouri Compromise. So Missouri, in about 1819, the Missouri Territory petitions to come into the United States. And again, let me just repeat what made this significant is this is the first territory that didn't exist before the Louisiana Purchase. It's a creature that a political entity, a geographical entity, a unit, you might want to call it a political unit, that is new given the Louisiana Purchase. And the slaveholding interests in Missouri dominate the politics of Missouri. So when they petition, when Missouri petitions to come into the Union, Missouri petitions to come into the Union as a slave state. Well, Northerners oppose this. And it's not so much anti-slavery feeling in the sense of slavery is a moral evil. It's really a political evil. Because what would happen is if Missouri comes into the Union as a slave state, which it did, it would upset the balance between free states and slave states that existed in the United States. I think at this point there were 13 free states and 13 slave states, something like that. And so Missouri would have made it 14-13. And so Southern interest would have gained, they would have gained a significant advantage in Congress and in the presidency. Don't forget that the Constitution had counted slaves as 3/5 of a person, which really angered Northerners because it gave the South more political power than it really deserved, given that in every other area of life, slaves had no rights whatsoever. So the 3/5 clause gave the South a lot more clout than Northerners believed that it deserved. And of course, all states get 2 senators, but the 3/5 clause gave Southern states more representatives in the House of Representatives. And of course, it also gave Southern states more electoral votes, which is how we elect the president. So the 3/5 clause gives the South a lot more clout than it would have had otherwise. Okay. And so Northerners are not happy. Many Northerners, I would say a majority of Northerners, were not happy with this attempt of Missouri to come into the Union as a free state, and they protest. So there's a long debate. It goes on for about a year. Here's the upshot. Number one, Missouri comes into the Union as a slave state, but Maine is carved off from Massachusetts. Believe it or not, Maine was still part of Massachusetts at this point. Maine is carved off from Massachusetts and it becomes a free state. So the equilibrium is maintained between free states and slave states, number one. Number two, the Missouri Compromise line is created. And at this point, I think you might want to stop the lecture and take a look at a map, because this is really an instance where a picture is worth 1,000 words. The Missouri Compromise line is the 3630 latitude. It's the southern border of Missouri. Okay, so in the compromise, the Missouri Compromise of 1820, a line was established at the southern border of Missouri, which said slavery would not exist north of that line, with the exception of Missouri. Okay, and if you just look at a map for 30 seconds, you'll see what I'm talking about. So Missouri is grandfathered in. Slavery is allowed in Missouri, but the southern border of Missouri, and you stretch it across North America, slavery was not supposed to exist, or was forbidden, in the areas north of the 3630 line. And this has a consequence in Texas, because the northern border of Texas is the 3630 line. And that's how we get Missouri comes in as let's see here. I'm losing my okay. Missouri comes in as a slave state. Maine comes in as a free state. More importantly, or just as importantly, the Missouri Compromise line, which is the southern border of Missouri, is drawn, and slavery is forbidden north of that line. You need to know the Missouri Compromise line. This is something you'll be quizzed on. You need to know the story of it. And so, like I say, take a look at the map, and it'll be self-explanatory, the one I post online on Blackboard. Okay, that's the last podcast of the day. I've covered quite a bit of material. And any questions, please email me at my email, and I look forward to